faced with one best friend. It was easy going road. Life was anything but fair, but somehow we didn't care.
There's a term, Venters, there's a term going around corporate America, and it's referred to as the Great Flattening. It's where companies are getting rid of middle managers like crazy. I told you guys that just yesterday, my boss, well, I consider her my boss, right? She's my supervisor and manager that I speak to, because sometimes companies are so large, if that's the only one you get to talk to in the chain of command, you see them as your boss. She got let go. Here's what I didn't tell you. A couple of months earlier, my actual boss, the vice president, the one that actually is the boss of my manager, she got let go as well. Her name was Kathleen, and everybody absolutely loved her, at least I thought. But once she got let go, all of a sudden, I started to hear little murmurs about how Kathleen was basically a glorified cheerleader. All she did was give us extra meetings that were kind of duplicating the meetings that we were already getting. As a matter of fact, if I were to ask some of my recruiting coworkers, what are some of the things you dislike about the job? A lot of us would say that we really didn't like the excessive meetings. And that's where the problem with management lies. A lot of times your manager, although important, isn't necessarily as important as we all think. Because technically speaking, if they were taken out of the equation, all they have to do, especially nowadays, is replace them either with AI in some way, shape, or form, or they simply give the responsibility over to the remaining managers. What happens when all of a sudden your workload doubles, right? And you're expected to just smile and keep on moving? Well, your bandwidth becomes really challenging, right? Have you ever had a situation where a job you have to remember so much that a lot of times things end up falling through the cracks? Well, if you have to manage 10 or 15 people, and then they lay off the other manager and just give you her 10 or 15 people, all of a sudden, things are going to start falling through the cracks. Well, what does that matter, Jesse? Well, the reason it matters is because all of a sudden your job performance goes down, and then when the next round of layoffs occur, you're probably on your way out the door. What's really interesting, though, is going back to my vice president, Kathleen. Guys, when she got let go, a lot of people said that what she was doing was redundant, but at the same time, they ended up being let go for the same redundancy type reasoning. I thought that was really interesting. Sometimes we look at ourselves and we think, hey, I am far too valuable to just be thrown away. My job is safe. And one of the things that I learned in recruiting, no one's job is necessarily safe. I'll tell you what's interesting though. If you would have told me 2 years ago that I would still be here 2 years later and the managers and other coworkers I had would not, I would have thought you were crazy. Now, one of the things that I do, and I don't know if it's different than the people that got laid off, but even though I work from home, I actually try. And I think there's a lot of people that work from home and love being able to kind of not always focus on their job. So what managers do to compensate is they try to micromanage you. So in our job, we always had a ton of Excel spreadsheets to fill out, and we were giving them information they already know, because there's one thing you know, your managers already know how you're performing. So a lot of our Excel spreadsheets that we had to fill out, and a lot of the meetings that we had to go to, were actually just taking time away from us actually doing our jobs. Now, if this doesn't really ring true with you, this might not be the best video for you, but if you have been kind of working in corporate America, you know what I mean by sometimes meetings are excessive. Well, if your manager didn't have those redundant meetings, what good are they? That's kind of what they're there for. And while some managers saw Vice President Kathleen as this glorified cheerleader, that's kind of what managers are seen as well. Google recently reported that they've laid off 35% of their managers. Intel, they've laid off 50%. That's a lot of managers going the way of the dinosaur. In the past, if you got one managerial job that you got fired from or laid off from, I assume your game plan was to find a managerial spot elsewhere. I don't know if that's so easy to do this go round. Do you guys remember at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, it was almost like a bad dream that we were all in, because every day they would talk about more and more people that were affected and sick and filling up hospitals. But for the longest time, it seemed on the individual level like nobody really knew anyone that was affected. Well, or infected, I should say. Now, it's totally the opposite. Almost everybody knows somebody that either had COVID or had some sort of, or has had the vaccine or has lost a family member, right? We absolutely positively know that people really do get COVID. Well, the layoffs are very, very similar. You're hearing every day that there's these tens of thousands of layoffs, yet none of your friends or family have lost their jobs. So in your little world, it doesn't exist. But all of a sudden, you see a manager go. You see a coworker go. You see a bunch of people on the other side of the company that you knew existed, but you never knew them. All of a sudden, they're gone. And all of a sudden, just like COVID, the layoffs have become real. Bum, bum, bum. So imagine this. You're a manager and you don't really have much to do, but you have to look busy. So you're constantly coming up with new ideas to try to get more production out of your crew. That way you look like you're actually valuable to your company. Well, if you ask the employees, half of them fall into a bucket that say, hey, you are micromanaging us. I would prefer if you were less hands-on. I can actually do more without you. And then you have people on the other side that say, hey, even when I accomplish something at my job, nobody takes note because you're always busy doing something. And then they become the greasy wheel. What does that mean, Jesse? It means they become the loud microphone in the office, and they figure that the only way to get any attention for doing good work is to basically be loud and tell everybody about it. So you have people that are being loud because they feel like their manager doesn't notice them, so therefore they can't stand it. Meanwhile, others feel like their manager is way too up in their business, and again, they can't stand it. So where do you stand? Do you think we need more or less managers? Let me tell you what I thought. I thought Kathleen, our vice president, was just the nicest person. And where I think a lot of people would be intimidated to talk to the vice president, right, or the VP of recruitment, she made it easy to talk to her. So when you talked to her, you didn't feel doom and gloom, you felt uplifted. So in that regard, I loved Kathleen. She was awesome. With my manager that recently got fired, when I was struggling, she was able to help get me going. Which again, when you can motivate people that are feeling hopeless at their job, there's a gift there. Is it a gift that gets recognized all the time? Not necessarily. But again, if I were the owner of the company, I would kind of look at those things a little differently because I had an experience with her. The problem is there's so many people in said companies nowadays, right, that the chance of you even knowing your boss are slim and none. Literally, I don't know 2 or 3 rungs up the ladder, do you? If your corporation has thousands of people, there's a good chance you only know a small segment of those people. And that's kind of where your boy Jesse lies. Mobic says, to be honest, in my company, we have so many levels above manager and managers of managers and of senior managers that nothing gets done as you need to go up too many steps. Have you ever had a good idea and you're in a meeting and you let your supervisor know, and I don't know if they're just trying to make you feel happy, but they say, hey, that is a good idea. I'm going to go ahead and let my manager know. Let's see if we can send this message up the line. And even if it's a great idea, it gets lost as it goes up the chain of command and nothing ever happens. I think there is a situation that once you know how to do your job, you do need the manager less and less. You know how some people work really hard and they do the extra overtime because maybe their boss tells them, hey, I might have a supervisor or managerial position for you. Would you even want the managerial position if you knew it was going to double your responsibility? It was going to probably only amount to a very small raise for you, right? So nothing that great. And then on top of that, your neck's on the chopping block every time layoffs are in the air. Oh my God. Where do you go from here, guys? There's nowhere to go. You got a bunch of people from the world of IT, right? From the tech world, and they're going through layoffs and they say you can't find another job. Then you've got teachers being let off because a lot of school systems around the country are going broke, so they're having a difficult time hiring. Because of this, we're lowering our standards. It really does kind of sound like we're a country in decline. I don't know how we're going to bounce back from this. But you know what's interesting? If they said all of a sudden tomorrow that we're going to give everybody $3,000 a month of UBI and we're going to find a way to make it work, I mean, I don't know. I bet you there'd be a lot of people that would be excited about that. Look how absolutely stunning the sun looks. Absolutely stunning. Speaking of stunning, my ASU Sun Devils are losing 17-0 to Mississippi State. Golly, I should have never put any money on them to win. That's how life is, by the way. You don't put any money on anything, your team wins the Super Bowl. You put money on them, they end up losing and sucking, and you end up wishing you didn't. The moral of the story, call 1-800-GAMBLING. Quit gambling so damn much, Jesse. J. Frank Corbett says, without middle managers duplicating each other's roles, how will any planning to plan meetings ever get done? They slowed it down recently, but at one time we had 3 or 4 meetings during a week. And keep in mind, during a week, we work on average about 40 to 45, maybe 50 hours a week during the busy season. But if you're clogging that up with 5 or 6 hours worth of redundant meetings, just so people can say that, hey, we talked to the workers about this, we've got a game plan, when in reality, I don't know, have you ever had a meeting that changed your life? They don't really change lives. As a matter of fact, if you take that 5 hours worth of hourly meetings during a week and you multiply it out over 2 or 3 years, it's like I literally lost weeks to meetings. To Depart 8080 says, I worked as a middle manager and the reality was that I had to invent work. There was nothing to do. But you can't be seen as doing nothing. See, that's the catch. You have to make extra Excel spreadsheets for people to fill out. You have to have that extra meeting because that extra meeting makes it look like to their manager like they're doing something special. And if after that meeting production goes up at all, they can say, hey, it's because we had that really good meeting. When in reality, they probably would have done just the same anyway. My bosses would invent pressure to put on me. Just look busy. Yeah, I found myself filling out multiple Excel spreadsheets, and I don't really think it's because my boss 3 or 4 rungs up the ladder cared about it. I think it was mainly because the managers wanted us to look like we were cognizant of our successes and failures. They have a feeling that if you can stare at your numbers long enough, it'll motivate you to kind of do something to change those numbers. That's the only thing I can think of. Here's the thing that's shitty, in case my supervisor or manager ever watches this. My manager / supervisor was different. I don't want to use her name out here, but she was absolutely different. I really feel where most managers are a dime a dozen, I really feel like she did do special stuff. Did she probably have these same moments of twiddling her thumbs, not knowing what to do? Yeah, I'm sure she had slow moments just like that, right? But at the same time, she seemed to know how to get the most out of her crew. And when she was let go, everybody was really distraught. So sometimes you can't wait to see your manager, kick rocks and leave. Other times you actually enjoy your manager. And I don't know about you, if you actually like your boss or like your manager, that's a super blessing. Now I have to wonder, is she going to get replaced by somebody that maybe I don't get along with? Time will tell. Shadow Band says, I don't want my managers to have time for me. The best thing they can do for me is leave me alone. I'm thankful to work at a company that actually respects work-life balance and doesn't bother me as much. Shadow Band, you want to know something? One of the telltale signs when a company's about to get rid of you is they quit bothering you. So I agree, nobody wants to be micromanaged, but I don't also want to feel like I'm left on an island by myself. Because if you feel like you are all alone and you don't have any connection, that probably makes it easier for them to let you go. But I agree with you. Tommy 19777 says, performance dropped when the noise got rewarded. Yeah, when you have coworkers at meetings that start talking about great things that they're going to do, a lot of times they're just saying that because nothing's really coming through for them, right? You promise them that you always have coals in the fire and things that you're working on, and ooh, this has potential. And really, it's just your way of saying, I haven't gotten anybody to sign on the dotted line. Those people end up getting rewarded for doing nothing. Esteban Gallardo says, if middle management, HR, and recruiters are all out of a job before I die, I will be beyond happy. Here's where what goes around comes around. I always tell you guys that I hope one day lawyers and judges get eliminated for AI. And here Esteban Gallardo says he can't wait till recruiters are eliminated, right? So just when you think your job is safe and you're not bothering anybody, you never know. There might be somebody that's hoping that you end up falling. Speaking of falling, I'm hoping Mississippi State ends up falling in the second half and my Sun Devils make a comeback. I would ask you to pray for that to happen, but by the time you see this video, the game will have been yesterday. So instead, I'll say have a good day watching NFL football, and I'll see you later.